Hi everyone, my name is Lewis and welcome to my channel Traditional Black Powder. Today I'd like to cover some safety tips. Alright, so today I want to cover a few safety tips when you're going out muzzle loading. Probably the first thing you want to do is to make sure that your rifle is not loaded or there's no obstructions. Probably the best way to do that is to take the muzzleloader's ramrod, so you can see that, and put it down the barrel. And I know that on my muzzleloader, if I get down to the brass ring right here, see if I can show you. If I get down to the brass ring, I know that it's empty. Okay, so first thing to do is check to make sure that there's nothing in the barrel before loading it. Second thing you want to make sure is that you're using black powder or Pyrex. Never ever use smokeless powder. The pressures that can get created by using smokeless powder can create a pretty dangerous situation. So make sure that you're using either black powder or Pyrex. Okay. Another thing is the loading sequence. When you're in the process of loading your rifle, you want to make sure you're not distracted, because if you get distracted by somebody coming up and talking to you, you may lose whether you put in too much powder, not enough powder, whether they put a ball in or not. So my advice would be, once you get started with the loading process, don't get interrupted. If somebody comes up to you and tries to talk to you, just tell them to hold on for a second, let me finish this, and then you can talk to them, so you know exactly that your rifle was loaded properly. If you're just getting started with a new rifle or a rifle that you just picked up and never shot before, probably it's a good idea to start with a variable measure, powder measure, so you can measure and have an idea of gradually increasing the powder measure. And down the road, when you figure out, all right, this is how much powder I want to use on this particular rifle, then you can make your own or purchase one that fits exactly the grains that you want to use for that particular rifle. If you're using a Flintlock like this one right here, okay, when you're shooting either at the range or with friends out in a field somewhere, you want to make sure that there's nobody. I'm a right-hander, so this is a right-handed Flintlock. You want to make sure that nobody's standing directly to your side. You want to make sure they're standing behind you, because once you load the Flintlock, there's a flash hole here behind the powder pan. And if somebody's standing to your right, when you start to fire, there's going to be some gases going off to the right, and that person is going to get peppered with that, and it's not a good thing. So make sure that, especially with a Flintlock, that whoever is with you is actually sitting behind you. Probably a good thing whether it's a Flintlock or a percussion rifle or any rifle really, but especially with a Flintlock. With the flash pan right here, if you've never done it before, it's a little unnerving, but you'll get used to it. When you go to shoot, you're going to have a flash going off right here, not that far from your face. Okay, so it's probably a good idea to have some eye protection, just to make sure that if anything happens, you're protected. I've never had anything happen, but you don't want to mess around with your eyesight, so have some glasses on. Putting powder in your muzzleloader, never put powder from the flask. Okay, you always want to go from the flask to a powder measure, and then down the tube of the barrel. Okay, so the reason being because let's say you've taken a shot and there is an ember down there. If you go to charge from the powder measure or powder horn, if that happens to catch that amber, a potentially dangerous situation, as opposed to just having a small charge that you put in there normally, and it'd be unpleasant, but at least you don't have a whole massive powder going off at one time. If you're shooting at a range, for example, and you have all your stuff sitting on the table, it's a good idea to cover put the lids back on any powder container. You don't want a flash going into the powder container and possibly setting it off. If you're shooting with a powder horn, it's normally hanging around your side over here. So it's probably a good idea to swing that thing behind just when you take a shot, that you don't have any sparks going to the powder horn and cause a possible problem. During the process of loading your firearm, you're going to take out the ramrod, okay, and you're going to be putting powder in there, right, and you're going to be ramming the ball down. It's a good idea to always have the muzzle leaning away from you when you do this. When you put the powder in, you don't want to be looking down the barrel or have your face close to it when you're putting powder in, because if there's an ember down there and happens to catch, it'll go right on your face. So probably the best thing to do is to have it at a slight angle with your face away from you, pour the powder in, then patch and ball, and then ram it down home. Okay. This way it'll keep your face out of the line of fire. Let's say you're loaded and you're ready to take the shot. You bring on the rifle, pull the trigger, the pan powder goes off, but the charge doesn't go off. Okay. So the best thing to do at that point is keep the muzzle pointing downrange, at least for a minute, to make sure that there's an ember is not going to catch, and if it does happen to fire, that it's pointing in a safe direction. So those are a few safety tips for today. Just want to cover some of the basics if you're new and you never fired one before. So until next time, keep the tradition alive.